Always in springtime, we're so excited to get to the plant nurseries, and there's a lot of creative marketing that's out there. And I know that I'm captivated by some of it as well. And I know sometimes it just kind of sparks my curiosity as to whether it really will work or not. But before you spend your money, we thought we would spend ours to kind of see how some of these products work. And so we have a few examples of them here. We're not going to do all of them today, but we are going to start with the Bob Ross Chia Pet and then growing herbs in a mason jar. But there's a lot of different products, everything from a terrarium in a jar to growing herbs in a bag to something that you just have to add water. We even have some seed capsules here that you can throw out into your garden, but we're going to start those in some flats and see whether they really germinate and how well they produce. So stay tuned as we get into some of these products. Like I said, we're going to first start with our Bob Ross here. So when you first open any of these kits, you'll find a lot of times those instructions. And those are important to kind of look over. Usually they're pretty simple, and they are written towards a person who may not know anything about gardening. So they're pretty straightforward. So the first thing that we need to do is actually submerge this in water for about 30 minutes and make sure it gets nice and soaked. So we've got a pot of water here that we're just going to allow it to soak. You can see there's a hole. So one way to really submerge that even more is make sure you get that air and allow that water to go down into it. So while our Chia Ross is soaking in water, we're going to go ahead and look at 3 other little kits that we got. And each of these are somewhat similar but slightly different as well. So we've got one that we can grow herbs in, one that's a sprout terrarium, and then one is for succulent houseplants. So kind of something for everyone there. But one thing I noticed that I wanted to point out when I was purchasing these was if you look at them, there was a whole rack of both of these, and there was, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 of these, and they were very dusty on top. And just the fact that there was so much dust on top of this herb one kind of signaled to me that maybe it was something that was carried over. Because the succulent one doesn't have a plant in it, but these other two actually have seeds. So if it's something that's been carried over from season to season, that can be a little concerning to know that it might be an old product. And one way to tell is usually there are some markers on the bottom identifying the seed germination, and we do in fact have that. And so on this one that was really dusty, you can see on the bottom of it that the seed germination test for the seeds that are inside here was conducted in 2018, which tells me that this was packaged up 3 years ago. And so that's not to say that it might not still work and germinate, but that just kind of lets you know how old those seeds are in there. So if you don't have success, it might not be your fault. It might be that the seeds have been mishandled in that time, been exposed to a lot of different temperatures and things like that. And so there is that possibility. That's not to say that this kit won't still work. You might just have to use your own newer seeds. Now this kit you can see, and it's printed on here, so it's kind of blurred, but on the side here it says seed test of July of 2020. So we know that this was just done this summer from seed that they harvested and then packaged up and ready to go. So this is a newer product. So we would expect these seeds to not have any problem with germination. We'll begin with this herb one first and open it up and see what we've got inside here. So in this kit we were able to get 2 mason jars with lids, 2 small packets of seeds. One is mint seed and another is basil. Of course we've got a simple instruction card as well, and then this one, kind of the intention of it is to be able to grow some herbs and then cook with them. So they give you kind of a little recipe book. It's got about 4 recipes in it. So the instructions are fairly straightforward. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and unscrew both of these. It doesn't mention ever using these lids again, so I'm assuming we won't use them and that they were really just intended to hold the soil in there. But starting out seeds, sometimes you want to hold that moisture, so I feel like maybe you could use them, but it doesn't say to do that. So the first instructions are to go ahead and put a half a cup of water in each of these so that we can get that soil media nice and wet. And looking at this, I'm a little skeptical that half a cup is quite enough moisture. to add to this. Now the thing about this is they are glass, and so it's hard to remove that moisture. You don't want it to be soggy. But after looking at half a cup on this one that we just did, you can see the top of it is still rather dry. So I think I'm going to add a little bit more. Before that, actually, I'm going to do something. I'm going to put the lid back on it and shake it to see if I can get that moisture redistributed around there. It's helped a little bit, but I would still say it's a little dry. So I'm just going to add just a touch more to one of these. So I'm going to amend what they recommend and add a little more moisture. Just say maybe a 1/8 of a cup more, if that much. There we go, 1/8 of a cup more versus what they say. But I'm going to go ahead and leave one with the half a cup and one with a half a cup plus another 1/8 of a cup. So now that we've got moisture in both of our containers, we're going to go ahead and add our seeds. And it recommends planting about 7 to 10 seeds. And I would say we probably have twice that amount in this packet. So you could probably get 2 uses out of this. This is the basil seed. So we're going to go ahead and plant. And what we're going to do is kind of scatter a few of those seeds along the top. And it's really hard to see because they are small, dark seeds. And we're just going to kind of, it says to work that into the top 1/4 inch of that soil. Now again, this is the one that we didn't add the extra moisture to, and so you can see this is fairly dry media up here at the top still. So now in the other one we're going to add our organic, it says organic mint lemon balm. So lemon balm's a nice plant and a good one to have in the house because it's going to add a lot of fragrance. But we're going to sprinkle those on top there as well. And again, you can just tell by looking at the difference, this is darker versus this is lighter, so we know that there's moisture up in this potting soil. So we're going to kind of move those around. At this point, we're done. We've got our seeds planted in here. Now again, we planted more seeds than what we want to actually allow to grow. So the instructions say to add 2 teaspoons of water every other day for the first week, and then after that, you'll increase the amount of water because hopefully the plants will have started to germinate and then they're going to need more moisture. So after that, you're going to add about 2 tablespoons of water every other day. And as you see those sprouts start to germinate, we're going to do this process called thinning, and it mentions this in the instructions, which is basically simply going in with either a small pair of snips or your fingernail and removing all but the 3 or 4 strongest plants because that's really all that's allowed to grow in this root space that we have here. Hopefully after about 6 weeks we'll have some plants that we can harvest some of those leaves off. So we'll see how these go. In the meantime, we're going to make sure that we put these in a sunny window that allows for about 6 to 8 hours of sunlight or underneath a grow light. So we're going to drain our Chia Pet because we've got the clay that's nice and saturated now after 30 minutes, but we don't actually want to have moisture inside of it at the moment. So something that I thought was sort of just part of the packaging is actually a drain tray. So we're going to make sure that we don't throw that away. We're going to place our Chia Pet on there. And at this point you can see our seeds here after soaking for at least 10 minutes have a nice kind of gel to them. And so that gel is going to help adhere the seeds to our Chia Pet. We call these Chia Pets because we're using chia seeds, and the interesting thing about this is the chia seed actually really likes moisture, so it will absorb that moisture, creating this sort of gelatinous seed coat which forms like a glue as you put it on your Chia Pet. So in our situation here, it's a little bit more moist than what we want, so we probably should have added some seeds because you can see it's starting to drip off a little bit. Bob's hair is wanting to grow a little longer than what we anticipated, but it'll work out. And then the other thing is we have some leftover mix of the seed and the moisture here too, so this is just kind of waste for the time being. So once you've got a good coat on him, it's sort of like spreading jelly on your Chia Pet here. We're going to let this set for 2 days because we're just going to let it kind of adhere to that clay pottery, and then after that what we're going to do is then fill this up with moisture inside of here so that clay is porous, and so that water will actually get to those seeds and help those seeds germinate. And you want to empty out your tray daily so that there's no water standing in there. So another thing you can do to help with the germination process, and it actually mentions this, is to put a plastic bag over it. That will keep that humidity inside, again, allowing those seeds to germinate. And you should see that pretty quickly right after that. Once you start to see your seeds begin to germinate, you'll have about 4 to 6 weeks to enjoy your Chia Pet.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.